world. I'm Chris Gio, here to take you beyond the veil. This evening, I'm joined, of course, by my lovely wife and co-pilot, Mrs. Gio.
Good evening, everyone.
And we have an incredible show for you today. We are going to be talking about the death clause. We're going to be talking about frequencies. We're going to be talking about the geometry of sound, cymatics, and so much more. We're going to be joined by our dear friend Emily Moyer here in just a few moments. As I said in the intro, that is not on the official Patreon version. She's an old school raver that was there back in the day with me, and we were actually at a party together. We talked about this in a previous show. She made some interesting connections about how a lot of these parties are literally right next to an airport.
Right.
There's a rave called Airport that we were both at. I don't remember any of it. She doesn't remember very much of it. And I was talking to some friends, and I actually talked to my sister. And my sister was like, yeah, I was there with you, dude. And I do not remember my sister being there. And we drove from Houston to Austin to go to the rave. I don't remember the drive there. I don't remember the drive back. I spoke to a friend of mine and I was like, hey, dude, do you remember that party Airport? And he's like, yeah, it was like ran by the military or something like that. So we just like bailed.
Right.
And then, you know, we talked about the Luxor. The pyramid here in Las Vegas, you know, we did the ayahuasca thing back in 2018 in the Great Pyramid, and then saw all these flashing lights and everything. You can go back through our archives and see all that. That led us kind of to the Luxor, and I didn't even make this connection until we talked to Emily that it's right next to an airport, across the street from an airport, and it's also right there where the Mandalay Bay shooting took place as well. So she connected all these dots for me. And in previous shows, we've gone through rave flyers, and she showed me. I mean, there's raves that are called MK Ultra, like they're straight up called MK Ultra, and another one with like a reptilian holding a briefcase and walking with a bunch of money and stuff like that. And I'm like, how did I not see this? How did I not see this back in the day? But the way this show kind of came together is. Number one, I want to say we're going to be filling in for Clyde Lewis on Monday, and then we're going to be doing about 30 days as he takes a little bit of a hiatus. Things kind of got shifted a little bit. So we're going to be bringing in a lot more BTV content. And over at patreon.com/BTV Tribe, when we're doing the Clyde Lewis show, number one, we're going to do all 3 hours. But there's going to be a lot of chatter that goes on during the breaks because there's, you know, it's a standard clear channel clock and things like that. So during the breaks, we're going to be talking on our Patreon stream. So that's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
And then, of course, afterwards, we'll be doing more shows after more content afterwards for our Patreons as well. And we're going to start changing things up a little bit and really taking things to the next level. And the reason we want to do this is, number one, it builds a broader audience. And we get to take a step back and go back to what we were doing in 2014, 2015, speaking to a broader audience, but also it commits us to doing shows on a schedule for our Patreons.
Right.
So
helps both of us.
It helps everybody all around. And then moving forward, we might hook up with Sirius XM or something like that. And if we make that move, Beyond the Veil is not going to change. So please don't think that Beyond the Veil is going to change at all.
No.
I think it's actually going to get better because there's going to be two sides to it. There's going to be the regular coast to coast, you know, ground zero style stuff, and then there's also going to be the deep Patreon stuff, and of course all the chatter that goes on inside of the
we see the BTV stuff as being postgraduate.
Yes, exactly. I'm
level.
They just did Windows 11.
Oh, I hate
and
that.
And everything is screwed up.
So
and
mad.
So now Zoom is telling me that we have 10 minutes left on this call, so I'm going to have to disconnect from Zoom.
Okay.
And then start it all over again. So, anyways, we'll see how this goes. But anyways, yeah, a lot of big things coming up. So Monday kind of kicks that off, and we've been talking about that for a couple of weeks, but things have been kind of getting pushed back. But the reason that I'm letting everybody know is because we are dedicated to doing a lot more BTV content, and we needed to take some time to work on ourselves and to go within and get that inner gnosis. And as we've been doing this, a lot of things have come up and a lot of deep beyond the veil gnosis that we haven't even touched. And I was talking to some people off air. Somebody mentioned JCK earlier. I was talking to JC yesterday, and we are just breaking new ground with everything that's going on in the timeline right now, timeline shifting, all that stuff. So I'm really excited about this because it gives us a chance to kind of reboot everything, reset everything, kind of go back to our roots, but also bring back that 2016, 2017, 2018 Beyond the Veil that was that really deep ayahuasca kind of gnosis
energy.
And now we're like, okay, we have a set schedule now where we're like, okay, we're gonna do shows on this day, we're gonna drink on this day, we're gonna do this on this day and do that on that day. And I'm really looking forward to that because we've been kind of like a feather in the wind, just kind of blowing wherever everything goes.
It works for Forrest Gump, but it doesn't work for
yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you once again to our Patreons for hanging tight with us because we needed to take a little bit of time off, and I didn't realize why. But now I know it's because we're moving into these next levels where it's going to be hardcore. Go, 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 go. And in the Patreon too, we'll be talking about the next site that has already been identified. We already know where this is. Yep. As a matter of fact, we had a guest on. I don't want to give too many clues out there, but we had a guest before we even went to the Great Pyramid.
Right.
And he was telling us about... I mean, I guess I might as well just go ahead and say who it is. You know, it's Dennis McKenna. He was talking about the transcendental object at the end of time.
Passing the torch.
He was passing the torch to us, and we didn't even know what was going to happen in Egypt. So we went and did that, and he said, you know, there's actually another site that would be more interesting. And I didn't realize this until you pulled up the archive and you were listening to it, and you were like, hey, did you know Dennis mentioned that other site that we've been seeing in our experiences over and over and over again? Right. So that's going to be really cool. Another ancient site. And then I don't know what happens from there. Maybe system resets and gone, or maybe mission complete, and then finally maybe we get to rest. Yeah,
no, absolutely. You told me one time that someone had instructed you on, there's how there's 3 8-hour periods in the day, and you should be spending 8 hours sleeping, 8 hours working, and 8 hours doing what your soul desires.
You know, I want to stop you for a second because I was actually talking to Nathan Frazier. And we have Emily on, and so Emily, whenever you want to hop on, just turn your camera on and we will introduce you. But Nathan was saying that he's been doing a lot of studying and a lot of esoteric kind of stuff, and he's got an ebook on sigil magic, and he's going to come on the show and talk about that.
That's so cool.
And I think that would be a good Clyde Lewis show, so we're going to wait for that. Maybe we'll have him on Monday. You know, that
would be fantastic.
That sounds good. And so Nathan was talking about how there's 2 sets of elite. And there's one set that they believe that humanity should be uplifted, their consciousness should be expanded, and they should be free.
And they would treat the planet better as a result of that.
Of the higher consciousness. Yeah. There's another group that is like, no, humanity needs to be controlled. Only the few should expand their consciousness because people will turn on each other. And, you know, I've been kind of teeter-tottering between the two. I mean, I just have to speak from my heart. And the reason is because of 2020. When 2020 happened and I saw everybody tearing each other apart, I was like, oh, humanity is nowhere close to this.
They're not mature enough.
And they need to be governed. You know, some people do. And it's not anybody that listens to Beyond the Veil. It's not any of the BTV tribe. It's not anybody like that. But when you look out there at the masses, it's really disappointing because going back to 2016, I'll say this just for people that haven't heard it. I did a video called the Trump Inauguration from an Anarchist Perspective. And at the end of the video, the core of it was that at the end of the day, government is a form of control, mind control. It comes from the Latin word gubernatio, and then a Greek word named mente, and it's literally to control the minds of the masses.
That's right.
And so I was like, you know, completely anarchist back then. But then as I saw the unfortunate situations that are going on right now, I'm like, you know, if people can't step in and control themselves, you know, somebody has to.
That's absolutely right.
However, there might be something going on right now, something that people are taking on their own that I'm not going to mention here. And Emily, please don't mention the V word here either. Because you know how that goes.
Do not.
But it's kind of like, you know, eliminating those who can't see. And I don't know if that's all part of the plan or not. I really don't know. But I know that there is a big plan in the music industry, also in Hollywood as well, and that is called the death clause.
Yes.
And so I was thinking we can start with the death clause and then get into the more esoteric stuff as we move along. So instead of running a break or intro or anything like that, I am just going to go directly to Emily, who has been standing by so sweetly.
Hey,
Emily,
so
how are you doing, my
patiently,
dear?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear.
Loud
and you're
and-
not
Okay, good.
sounding like a chipmunk now.
beautiful.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Although it was really cute.
It was adorable.
I was talking to you when you guys were doing your test kind of stuff and you weren't hearing me. So I wasn't sure if there was a problem or not. So anyway, I'm glad you can hear me. And it was fascinating when you called me this morning, like, so, you know, that probably I was chatting about you guys last week. So I was glad to hear from you, but to be on the show with you here tonight. But it's funny, you tune back in and in your own unique way, you touched in on a couple of different topics when you brought them up to me that I've been focused on, maybe from slightly different perspectives. I've been incredibly focused on sound and the possibilities of what can be done with sound and what is being done with sound right now, both sort of at a high level and a low level. And then I've gotten into watching a lot of propaganda, documentary films on Netflix when I need like a break from the sort of intense, heavy duty, metaphysical sci-fi kinds of shows that like we'll watch a lot, right? We might watch like a few seasons of something like Dark, and then you need something just to like palate cleanse or something that's not hard, that you don't have to try hard to understand. So we'll watch some of the various documentaries and whatnot that are there. And we recently watched the Whitney Houston movie that came out on Netflix a few weeks ago. And it actually, like these propaganda films, whether they're about celebrities or whether they're about things like the Boston bombing or whatever, like they're mostly full of nonsense and propaganda, but there's always a few little nuggets in there that are sort of interesting in a different way than the nuggets you get from deep researchers or conspiracy theorists. And they're always sort of like a clue hidden in plain sight about sort of something else about this, you know, but it gets your mind sort of thinking in a different way. So I watched this Whitney Houston movie and first of all, remembered how many really good songs she had. I would never have classified her as like one of my favorites or someone I listened to regularly, but like every song of hers was catchy, had swing, like, you know, was like a great song.
Yeah.
So enjoy having that refresh. But also I feel like they did somewhat of a reasonable job of capturing like at surface level the entirety of this person who was very complex. And at the end of the documentary, it left me thinking that, you know, I don't think what happened to her was that weird or esoteric of some sort of ritual murder as a lot of people might think, right? I think it really was more of a business decision. And I don't know if on the other side of that business decision, she's really still with us, just not with us publicly, right? Or whether she's not with us. But I could see how, you know, you have someone like they called her the voice, and she did. She had a one of a kind frequency that she emitted.
Yes.
There was no one else that sounded like her. And regardless of all of the other things that may have been going on in her life, if there was mind control, if there was handling, if there was, you know, all kinds of ritual, you know, they're all the things we conspiracy about, right? She ultimately was a drug addict. And when you do the amount of crack smoking that she did, that can do damage to your body. And right, like she was smoking crack and smoking cigarettes and drinking a lot. And she was reliant on her windpipes for creating this, not just like, okay, these songs are fun to listen to or whatever, but I think there was a very specific pitch, frequency, all that kind of stuff that not only was the point of whatever was sort of behind her energetically, but also the thing that people connected with. And I think that when she got clean, supposedly, like whether she got clean or not, she was trying to make a comeback. And I think the higher ups in the music industry were like, she's damaged goods. And we have, a record deal, a multi-year record, multi-record deal with her. And if we allow her to go on tour and if we allow her to be out there singing, she's going to damage her reputation. She's going to damage the image. She's going to damage that sound. And so we need to not only remove her from the game board, but we need to recoup the money that, we invested in this, because there's a deal here. Right. And so I think the death clause is something, like I looked into a little bit today, what exactly the death clause conspiracy is. I was referred to it as sort of something else, but I think this was a way to capitalize on her as her greatest, create a lot of drama around the exit that would spike sales. But also, I think they're okay with everybody thinking all these like wild conspiracies. She may or may not be dead, right? Drugs may or may not have had anything to do with it. But she forever is like Whitney Houston, the voice. And if she had degraded to the point where she was nothing more than like a glorified lounge singer, then, that doesn't perpetuate, 50 more years of record sales and numbers on Spotify and all of that kind of stuff. Right. So I think that, there's a lot going on. There was a line that was repeated over and over in the movie, which was something that was part of her initial contract when she first signed with Clive Davis. And that was that this contract is binding in all perpetuity throughout the universe. And like they made her say that in the movie and people said it over and over again. And I think that there was a lot of clues laid down in the movie as to how things really work. And I think that they don't really mind that celebrities have extravagant lifestyles or might hurt themselves, because it isn't the risk that people think it is. Apparently, they have enormous life insurance policies taken out on these people, in addition to what I already knew. What I already knew was that, they have rights to the archives or the catalogs and all of that kind of stuff. I know that there's a scandal of people taking out life insurance policies on other people and then offing them and all that kind of stuff. Even people with just regular jobs. Hadn't really thought about that as much with the music industry. I thought that catalogs and royalties, were the main thing, but this just makes the pie bigger. You guys there?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
No, we're right here.
I'm actually writing notes.
So
it's actually,
I wanted to kind of take a step back real quick and just kind of explain what the death clause is for people real quick. So essentially what we're talking about here is a clause in every single record contract and every single acting contract where you sign with a let's take music. So the music industry, when you sign a record deal, it's basically like getting a loan. And that's what it is. They give you an advance and you don't actually start making money until the album starts making money, which is how a lot of people wind up broke after their record deal, because they never actually go anywhere, or their album doesn't do any good, doesn't do well. And so they actually are in debt to the record company to pay it back. But what the record companies have been doing, and this is going all the way back to MCA, going all the way back to like the early 1900s to, and it's mafia ties. The mafia was actually involved in this. So they would go after these artists and they would have them sign these contracts. And in the contracts, it says that the company can have an insurance policy that the artist does not know about, the artist's family does not know about. They're not entitled to any of that whatsoever. And it's up to 10 times the amount of what their projected gross is. So if anything happens to them, then the record company can get their money back on their contract. So, for example, what you and I were talking about earlier was like Heath Ledger, and this is a little bit different, but Heath Ledger did great on the Joker. I mean, it was just fantastic, and I think that was the pinnacle of his career. I didn't really recognize who Heath Ledger was until I saw a deep fake do it with Heath Ledger over the Joker without the makeup on. And I was like, oh, okay, this is like a pretty boy guy. He was in Knight's Tale. I never saw that, but I saw the trailers. He was in Brokeback Mountain, I think. I never saw that, obviously, but I saw the trailers. And so he was not known for that kind of role, but the way he just nailed that, I mean, it was incredible. It was like he stepped out and did something completely different that nobody would have ever expected him to do. However, that was the pinnacle of his career. 4 months later, he was dead. So that big amount of money that he got, according to this death contract now that's how much he's worth. So now that makes everything that he's done worth that much more because he's gone now. And so they cash out on that insurance policy that's up to 10 times the amount. We see this with the 27 Club. You have a lot of artists that are dying at 27, artists that are just dying mysteriously at 33 years old and things like that. They put out a couple hit albums, and right before they start to peak downwards, all of a sudden, boom, they die. We saw this with Michael Jackson. There's a lot more surface controversy there because Michael Jackson owned half of the Sony catalog, and he owned all of his music as well, half of his music. And Sony made a huge amount of money with that, plus cashing in on that insurance policy. They made hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars just from Michael Jackson's death. And all of these people seem to die the exact same way. Suffocation. You look at Robin Williams, for example, suffocation. They say it was autoerotic asphyxiation or something like that. The guy from Kill Bill. He was a B-list actor, moved up a little bit. He was kind of famous in the 70s, kind of went down a little bit, and then got that contract to do Kill Bill, and all of a sudden he winds up dying. The studio actually made a lot more money from his death. He was worth more dead than he was alive at that point. And they factor in the artist's death in all of these contracts. I mean, when I heard this, it didn't surprise me, but it chilled me because I'm a musician and, I've always wanted to do something like that. But now I'm taking a step back and going, wait a second, this is calculated. It's calculated from the very beginning. If you don't make money, boom, they can kill you. And once they kill you, they collect on everything they put in. If you make a bunch of money, as soon as your popularity starts to go down, boom, they kill you and they make 10 times more than what they were making before.
Exactly.
So it's really, really, really sinister.
Right.
But it's so commonplace.
Well, and I was also going to say that when we're looking at these things, the line between entertainment and infotainment has become more and more and more and more and more blurred since 2012, 2013, 2014, and especially 2016, when we had Who Won in 2016 win. It opened a huge door for us to be able to entertain ourselves as well as learn something new and learn something different that leads us down rabbit holes that we never thought would take us to the realms that they've taken us. And as a result, I think when we're relaxing, we're still researching. Do you find yourself doing that?
Yeah, 100%. Like there's no minute off, right? of this thinking. Like once your brain starts trying to connect the dots. And to be honest, like even before I was like a conspiracy theorist or whatever, like I always liked unsolved mysteries and America's Most Wanted. And I've always wanted to solve the puzzles and find the answer and the secret. And then I was never, if I did, I wasn't satisfied with like the obvious answer. I wanted it to be like more complex and weirder and whatever. Right. So
yeah, me too. Yeah.
But even like, I have a regular day job and like, I think about this stuff. I think about it differently when I'm there. Like I've become much more skeptical of a lot of my own thoughts and a lot of the things that like we as a sort of alternative of information community, a lot of the things that we believe to be true or the things that we sort of perpetuate, I've become equally as skeptical of those things as I have been of the mainstream, but my mind is always working on this. And, I think something has happened with this where it's become a little bit more civilized in terms of like, it was a mafia tactic that was copied. That makes a lot of sense. And in the beginning, they probably copied exactly the way the mafia did it. But I think as time has gone on, I don't know that they just kill these people. I think they get a choice. Some of these people, right? Like, we're going to kill you, and we can either kill you or you can go along with the idea that we killed you and you can go somewhere else and do something else and whatever. I think that is happening. Like, I don't think that it's all of these people have really had their physical lives on Earth ended. And I think some of these celebrities are probably okay with this arrangement. Like, my guess would be that there are celebrities who don't have a problem with that. I think there's probably even celebrities who like this idea. I remember someone I met once or twice and who used to be operant in the alternative media from a very unique perspective, informed me of the fact that there are like private agencies that celebrities could hire to help them fake their death. Right. And so I think it's possible that it doesn't always come from the record label. I think it's possible that sometimes someone decides that, like, I'm kind of done with this. It wasn't necessarily what I signed up for, or it was for a while, but I'm not into it anymore. But I have all of these contracts and all of these people that depend on me to make a living. And so I'm okay with this idea of an insurance policy. They can all get paid. I can move on. Right. I think that, I think it's probably more common than we would be comfortable with, just in terms of the way our brains work. And then I think there's this next layer that has come about since there's YouTube and since there's the internet, that maybe like started as a problem, but now I think they think that it's like a feature instead of a bug. And that is like people, if one of these people gets found or caught, right? Like if someone finds Tupac somewhere, or whatever, JFK Jr. somewhere, or whatever it is, right? Then you can spin a conspiracy that brings more attention to these people as assets now, because once they're dead, that's basically what they are. I mean, they were assets when they were alive, but if somebody is like going down the Tupac Shakur is still alive conspiracy rabbit hole, they're also going to go listen to his music on Spotify, probably download some of the shit. And people who are conspiracy consumers are listening to this and be like, do I even remember his music? Let me go download a thing or two, right? So having all these conspiracies about them keeps them current, right? Introduces them to an entirely new audience, not just the audience of like people who never heard their music, but people who would never have been interested in them as artists are now interested in them because they're interested in conspiracies. And conspiracies are an industry at this point. Like, it's not mom's basement like it used to be, right? I mean, there's people who, screamed me out of their house when I first got into conspiracies, who now I'm not extreme enough for them, right? So, I think that there's probably a boutique industry around this idea of people wanting to, quote, move on, or being nudged to move on, if you catch my drift.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that,
Me
especially with cloning technology and the way that deepfakes are happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
We've been told through predictive programming over and over and over again. There was a movie called Simone, I want to say, with Al Pacino. I might have the name wrong, but it was basically they had this whole celebrity that was nothing but CGI, and that was the whole thing behind it. We see Michael Jackson making appearances after his death and all that.
The Congress, same thing.
The Congress, yeah.
I was going to say the Congress. Like, we talked about the Congress a lot on my show. In fact, I was having a little back and forth with my friend SB Alger just now before I started with you guys about this. I think that is very real, what is happening there.
Me too.
And I think that, that is, I think it's been going on for longer than people would care to believe. But it also, you brought up Heath Ledger. I think the film, and I went back and I listened to like someone's breakdown of it more esoterically today after we spoke this morning. The film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, is what happened with Heath Ledger. I don't think Heath Ledger is dead. And I think the movie is basically explaining to you what happened to him and where he is, the ritual that he sort of went through, that they turned into a movie that would also serve as this story that like, oh, he was working on it when he passed and blah, blah, blah. Right. But for the people who know how to pick up what they're putting down. Like basically they showed, how he like that he was celebrating having ascended into another space. And I don't know if that means he's in another dimension or like on the other side of, whatever the part of the earth they let us know about, or if he, or if he is living right here, just, as a farmer in, he may be playing all the roles of his movies. He may be living as a farmer in Wyoming, like he, right, type of thing. So I think that, I think that it's in our faces, and I think we've gotten pretty, obsessed with breaking everything down and looking for all of these very exotic explanations and all of these little clues and all of that kind of stuff. And I've come to the conclusion that they love when we do that. They love when we spend years and years and years trying to talk about the thing we're not allowed to talk about.
Decipher it, and
Right.
Yeah.
And rehash looking at old videotapes and picking out like unmatching shoes, because every moment we're doing that, we're in their game.
Exactly.
We're in their game, and there's an explanation that has been offered that actually makes more sense than some of these things. And in some ways, it's like hard to say. This is kind of like what you were saying at the beginning. I feel like when you were talking about like people needing to be governed, I don't know how I feel about that, but like, like there's stuff put in our faces. And for anybody who gets to the point where they have looked at the room from every angle, they will eventually see that there was like something hiding in plain sight, like an Easter egg, right? When your mom says like, I hid 10 Easter eggs and you found 9, and you've looked in all the complex places and all this, that, and whatever. And then you like find the Easter egg that's like just sitting out there in the middle of the table where you would never think that it would be. But the people who are not prepared to deal with the amount of personal responsibility that answer will force you to take are governed by their mind being engaged in this endless search for a boogeyman, like some very complex, weird story.
Right.
Like, I think that like there's a few things that really matter to like in reality, like to how the world works. And of course, elite people want to have on some level, some control of that. Right. But I don't think there's that many. And then all of these other conspiracies that exist only exist in service of keeping people from understanding how those few things that are important actually work.
Yeah, it's not actually promoting that autodidactical process where you're like, okay, well, I'm learning how this operates so that I don't fall for it next time. They're always falling for it next time, and then discovering later, oh, the JFK assassination, oh my God, and that's not acceptable anymore because they've done it so many times that you would have to be trying to ignore it on some level in order to keep falling for it as a culture. And I'm not saying anybody in particular, and I'm not talking about our tribe. I'm talking about the culture that we live in has become so desensitized to what's going on that they are basically chasing after what's been happening rather than getting ahead of it and saying, no, we're not going to fall for this again.
Well, that leads into the dead internet theory, in my opinion. I don't know if you've looked into this, Emily, but essentially the premise is that the internet is dead. We're interacting with mostly bots. The reason for that being is because your attention is the biggest commodity. So they have everybody corralled into 3 or 4 different websites. They go to work, they come back, they get their little fix by all their likes and, all that stuff that happens on social media, the little dopamine rushes. And then they go and they repeat it over and over and over again. And being in this quote unquote truth movement, and I hate to use that word, but for so long, I saw the way this all played out. They corralled everybody over to YouTube. They got everybody all under one little blanket. Everybody was making a decent living, and all of a sudden, boom, they pulled the plug. There was back in 2015 a New York Washington Times article that came out, and it showed an advertisement of a neo-Nazi, You know, you can't even say that word anymore. Advertisement on top of, an advertisement on top of one of those videos. And there were even mainstream YouTubers who were saying, "Hey, this looks screenshotted. This looks fake." I mean, they weren't even in our industry, and they were even coming out and talking about it. And that was the first wave. And then they hit another wave with 2016 and the whole Podesta thing. Then there was another wave, and then J6 was the one that just completely, they were able to do whatever they want. And then they moved everybody over to Telegram, and that's why I don't trust Telegram, because it seems like they're just corralling everybody all to one space. And it's like, okay, you stay over here in your little corner, and then they can catalog everybody that's there. But the dead internet theory is basically you're interacting with bots. You have suggested algorithms. You remember back in the day when the internet, you'd go and you type something in and you'd see all these different opinions from all these different people. Now it's mainstream, it's Facebook, social media, all that stuff. And that's all people kind of see. So you get into these arguments with all these bots, and you're arguing with people who aren't even real. I mean, Elon Musk just said, what was it, like 50% of the people on Twitter were bots? So, and it's all to keep your attention there. So you keep on going back, you keep on going back, you keep on going back for the advertiser revenue. If I can take a step back real quick, 1924, Julius Caesar Stein was the one that founded Music Corporation of America in Chicago. And he ultimately went on to create MCA Records. And there was one case, and I don't remember which artist it is. There's a list of artists here. But they noticed that the band was kind of going sideways. And as it was going sideways, the lead singer, they were talking about breaking up. So the lead singer decided to go out for the night, and he came back, and they couldn't find him for like 2 days. The car was missing. He took his mom's car. The car was missing for like 2 days. And then all of a sudden it just appeared in the parking lot, and there was gasoline inside. He was completely burned alive. He was strangled and all kinds of things like that. There were these two weird guys that were there. One of the managers from MCA Records was there all of a sudden on the scene, just mysteriously. And the police came over. The police didn't want to touch it. The coroner was writing up reports, completely ignoring everything else and making it look like an accidental death, because an accidental death is way more than a suicide. So, going all the way back to the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, this has been played out over and over and over again, and it all goes back to the mighty dollar. And you come back to 2023, and you have to question everything now. Like, what's real? Like, I know you're real because I'm talking to you right now, but how many people out there that we're interacting with are actually real? All those people, who are saying, "Hey, my brother's in the hospital right now. He just got that zombie virus. We need to have more lockdowns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." There was a Twitter account that was logging each one of those replies and showing that with the same typo, same everything, coming from original accounts that were verified, and they looked like real accounts, and they were just bots, just putting this out, putting this out, putting this out. And then all these people arguing with that account, and there's nobody actually there. It's just keeping people engaged over the next controversy, the next hot topic controversy, whatever's trending, whatever you're supposed to be outraged for the day. And it's, I don't know, there's so many angles to this. I don't even know where to go.
Well, I think a direction that we can go in is the fact that if they're willing to do this to people that are celebrities that people, essentially worship, when these celebrities die, the whole premise to the fact that they're doing this to them, because this does tie into the dead internet theory as well, in that when these celebrities die, they don't really die. They live on through all of those sales of their records posthumously, as well as anything that they did with anybody. Those people are now elevated by virtue of the fact that they worked with so and so before they died, and and so it spreads to everything like a cancer, and then it gives also the impression in the culture's mind, because the culture is constantly evolving with the technologies that it's presented with, and I'm very concerned that the technologies that we're being presented with, such as our phones being able to connect to 5G, which is also able to affect our bodies and our minds by very virtue of the fact that it's EMF radiation that's hitting a certain frequency that's able to affect that. I'm very concerned that we're being kind of led into like a Pied Piper situation. We're being led into a completely different reality than that which we would have accepted 5 years ago. What do you think about that, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's pretty like, I think we go through these cycles like that with sort of technology and then what is popular in the culture. Like something new comes along and it's like, oh, this is exciting. This is new. And you can't see for some reason how you're being funneled, kind of like the way, like, okay, when you were talking, Chris, about YouTube, it was making me think about like the difference between living in New York City and, where I grew up in Los Angeles. And in New York City, to get into New York City, you have to come through like either a train or over a bridge or through a tunnel. And oftentimes there are, like tolls associated with that. Whereas in Los Angeles, for the most part, I mean, there's a few things going on newer recently. You can access anywhere from almost anywhere. Like you can take the freeway, you can take the streets. Sometimes there's multiple freeways to get to the same place. So there's all of these ways to approach something and then all of these ways to leave whatever place you are. So you can get to anywhere from almost anywhere and get away from anywhere from almost anywhere. Going into New York, there's only a few bridges or tunnels that you can go through. So everything, all of New Jersey, or Pennsylvania or whatever is being funneled down into this one road. And that's the only way they can get in. And then if there's pandemonium in the city, there's just a few ways that you can get out. And it feels like that's how the social media and the internet and therefore like kind of our popular culture has gone. And I think that like, who was it? Like somebody was like, what's the guy's name who Drudge Report, right? He talked about like these digital ghettos. Matt Drudge, right? He talked about that we were being siloed into digital ghettos, right? And that's kind of, what happens in certain inner cities that have this sort of setup where it's not just like an open grid where you can kind of choose the route you want to take. So I think your point about the internet was really good with that. I used to have 50 websites I checked a day, for articles that I read or podcasts that I listened to or something that I watched. And then, as YouTube and, Facebook and, a few other things came along, it's just like, now I can just go to YouTube and it seems convenient, but it's kind of like the same as having to always access New York City through the tunnel, the bridge, the subway or whatever, instead of like being able to come at anything the way you want to. And then I think that has bled over into our culture. Like our technology has changed our behavior. Like when we were younger, we said, I had a really good idea. Now we say, I had a download, right? We are behaving out there in the physical world the same way that we behave online. Like my friend, Les Luthor, I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he was like the person who just completely ripped the veil off of the Ukraine situation on day one. Right. He says that we're living in the Q world order, right? Because everybody's willing to like line up single file for everything. Yeah. And just like, we've done a couple of shows where we like, there's like, you wouldn't believe the amount of research and energy that has gone into studying what they call in Britain where he lives queuing, right? Like, there's like thousands and thousands of scholarly papers about the different ways you can get people to wait in line and how like you can keep them in the line longer and with the kind of entertainment they would need. And they're more patient to make the line snake like this. And if it's just straight, but the internet is kind of like that as well, right? Like the things you have to do to get people to only want to go to the one place. Right. Like, if there was a popular club, you were willing to wait in line to get in. Whereas if you didn't feel like it was the popular place with your favorite DJ, you don't want to wait in line. You don't want to have the doorman tell you no. But if you think you're cool when you're doing it, or if you think what you want is inside, you'll do it. And like you said, Chris, we all lined up on like the YouTube queue and we all started, having access to broader audiences than we did on just websites. And we started making money, whether it be through ad revenue or being easily able to turn people over to Patreon or sessions that we were doing or products that were being sold or whatever it is. But all of us were paying the toll on the bridge to get into that space.
Well, okay, listen to this. I was reading an article the other day about how the architecture is being built in places where there's homeless encampments all over the place. Do you know how they're keeping where we went when we came to LA that one time, where you were leading us? Did you know that surrounding that area, they've added architecture that like benches and things like that are specifically designed to make you not able to lay down on them and get any kind of rest whatsoever. Like they are intentionally putting like spikes up where nobody can sleep there comfortably, so it keeps people trapped into Skid Row.
Yep. Oh no, they love Skid Row.
So they're doing the same thing online. They're doing the same thing online. Is my point, that they're making it extremely uncomfortable to do what you want online, so that eventually you'll just give up, because a big hard hit all at once will make a person react. It's a frog boiling in the pot situation.
Death of 1,000 cuts.
I don't wait in line. I got one of these.
I've got one too, but yeah.
But no, seriously though, you raise a really, really good point about that. Taking it to the next level, you talk about sound, you talk about the sound waves, all of that, and it kind of ties into all of this. That's why I wanted to start with the death clause, because we're talking about music, musicians, things like that. And there's those who play the game, those who don't play the game, those who fail at the game and get taken out, or they exit on their own, and they fake their deaths, or whatever the case may be. But then you have some that are in it. They know exactly what they're doing. It's mind control through frequency, through sound, through all of that. So on that note, if you don't mind, let's take a quick break. And on the other side, let's get into the mind control aspects of the music industry and the music itself, and how the frequencies actually affect us on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and the AI knows this, and it's using it to its full advantage.
This is another Dimitri Darko original. So you guys and gals out there, tell me how this affects you all out there. Is it a positive vibe or is it a negative vibe? We'll see. Kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. Thank you very much for joining us. And we will be back on Monday. We'll be doing Clyde Lewis's show, and it's going to be much more structured than this show. I'm not sure who we're going to have on or what we're going to talk about, but we will figure that out.
George Cavassalas is on the list of people. We also have a few other people that we're trying to get on as well. So
okay, I'm glad you're on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So Cherie will take care of that, and and then after we do that, of course, we'll do a couple hours for BTV Tribe at Patreon. So if you're watching this, the total duration of the show is 3 hours and 40 minutes. The majority of the show has been cut from YouTube because we talked about a lot of very, very, very sensitive topics that we can't keep on YouTube. But you can go to patreon.com/BTV Tribe, just like the coupon code for iLife, BTV Tribe, and check out the full shows. We've got a ton of stuff here on YouTube. We have like months that are gaps, but that's because all the stuff's been going on Patreon, because we did get hit with strikes and stuff like that, and we don't want to jeopardize the channel, but we also want to make sure that people can tune in live and do stuff like that. They pulled us while we were live.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
I've never seen them do that before.
Yeah,
but.
so it's getting bad because it's interesting. Going all the way back to what we were talking about at the beginning, we've been stuck at 58,000 subscribers for 5 years. 5 years, and it's pretty clear what's going on. I'll show you an example here. I'm gonna go here, right? I'm gonna go to YouTube. And I'm going to type in Chris Geo Shout. That's a song that I did, okay? So here's one that my friend uploaded. That's the guy that did the other thing, Bliss. That's his upload. Ours is nowhere to be found. Literally, like nowhere to be found.
Yeah, it's your own song is nowhere to
Yeah, my
be
own
found.
music is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So
Other people's uploads are.
yeah.
That's
And Bliss
crazy.
has like 360 views on his. And yeah, that's how YouTube has been doing us. But
nuts.
I think it's okay. But my point is that going all the way back to what we were talking about in the beginning, the dead internet and all of that, it's very real. But they only look at channels that are really big when they're doing live streams.
That's right.
So to get pulled in the middle of a live stream, I took that as a compliment.
Me too.
Because it means that we're big enough to be on their radar.
We're flattered.
But at the same time, we're stuck at the 58,000. I find that actually kind of funny.
Yeah,
I
it's
find
hilarious.
it funny in the same vein that I find it funny that they had to remove the dislike buttons from everything because there were so many people disliking everything that happened post 2020
That's
and things from
right.
whitehouse.gov and all that. And, their YouTube channel that they literally had to remove the dislike buttons to try to hide it. But, that's the thing. Mail-in ballots don't click. Mail-in ballots don't leave comments. Bots do,
that's
but
right.
mail-in ballots don't do any of that. So it is what it is. But I'm glad that we are able to spend time with our tribe tonight.
Me too. Me too. We love you guys so
we love
much.
each and every one of you, and we will see you on Monday. Kiss the one you love right now. You never know the last time it's going to be, and we'll see you even further.
Beyond the veil. Love you
ya.
guys.
Oh, actually, I don't have it queued up here. There we go.
Oh no.